Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it says it's now live, so I guess you can let people in.
Okay.
Says we've got
Wait.
22 attendees. So.
Okay. Session time. Well, I believe we're probably in the meeting, aren't we? Yeah, it's now live. Okay. Well, I'll start. Um, just a second here. Hello, everyone. Um, Today we're going to talk about criminal justice. Is that correct, guys? And we have Ryan Presenell, Emily Harrison, and Justin Humphries, who are all school teachers from Elizabethton, Tennessee, Sullivan North, and Johnson County. You will not have microphone, video, audio capabilities during this session. If you have questions or trouble, just please enter it in the chat. We'll get back with you. And then if you have tech trouble or a non-tech issue, I will put the emails in the chat in just a few minutes for you to refer to. If you have any questions related to the presentation, like I said, put them in the chat and Emily will take care of those. And I believe that is it. I'm going to turn it over.
Okay, as Paul said, my name is Ryan Presenell. I'm a criminal justice teacher at Elizabethton High School. Talk a little bit about my background here in just a second, introduce myself a little better. Presenting with me is Justin Humphries from Sullivan North and Emily Harrison from Johnson County. We're all members of what we've termed the East Tennessee Criminal Justice Instructors Association. And a few years ago, we put this organization together just as a collaborative effort to try to do things like what we're going to talk about today, which is a regional competition. And it's been very, very beneficial. We'll be putting on a professional development day here in the next few weeks, just to offer that to the members of the association. The association it's not a hard and fast. You're a member, you're not a member, pay dues. It's really just a collaborative effort, really just a group text and a group email. And so it's been very good for us to put together things of this nature. And so us three decided or answered the call to go forward and present this to you today. I think it's a really good model for what you can do in your region. It's really quite simple. There's been a lot of folks put in a lot of time. I believe I saw Kevin Hilbert that he's going to be attending today. He's an instructor down at Volunteer High School. He was a great help in the early years, but there's just a lot of people put a lot of time into this, and it's very easy now, to be quite honest. It's really a copy and paste job from year to year. There is some logistical side work that will go into it, but it's just such a successful thing. So we're excited to talk to you about this, and we're going to put the screws to you at the end, and we're going to ask for folks that would maybe like to join us in this effort, not only here in East Tennessee. We really represent what a lot of folks call Upper East Tennessee or Northeast Tennessee. So we could really get some things down in the Knoxville area that would help out quite a bit to start expanding this across the state. Our dream up here in Upper East Tennessee is that this would go across the state, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. So if you could, Justin, next slide. Awesome. Bottom line up front is this is a great event that's really puts the kids into the shoes of law enforcement. You can see there with that first picture on the left, they're lifting a footprint, a foot mold, and it's an FBI agent there standing right over the top of them, evaluating just as they would at Quantico when they train people on these forensic technicians. And so we obviously can't create the real thing. We've gotten pretty close a couple of times, but see, Marlene says she doesn't have any sound. Can everybody hear, or is it just Marlene? Okay, we're going to keep on trucking. We got some other folks raising hands.
I'll check on that.
Okay. Okay, it looks like some other folks can hear, so we'll keep on trucking. We are recording this, and I think they are going to replay it again tomorrow. So we put them in the shoes again, and that's just a really good picture. And I love the evaluator standing on top of them. You can tell we're outside. You can tell it's cold. We don't shy away from the elements. We do it as it happens on the ground. You can see at the top right, we've got a picture there off of WCYB, which is our local NBC affiliate here in the Tri-Cities. On any given competition, there'll be from 3 to 10 different media outlets, both print and online, all of those different things. And it's a really good look for your program, for really your high school and your kids. You can see on the bottom right there, those are two of my kids that honestly this competition helped them change their minds on their career thing. Both of them had written criminal justice fields off. They just took the classes just out of general interest, but they got to this day and they relish the challenge. They love the challenge. They love the teamwork. They love the feeling of going through the checklists of really that game type atmosphere that you find in law enforcement before you go out on a search warrant or something of that nature. And they're both athletes, and they decided that this is something that they really liked, that when, their competition days as athletes are done, that they want to move forward with this and they want to do these types of things and wear a uniform. And so it's just been a really good competition for us. It's 100% integrated into our classrooms, and just a good all around day for everybody. So next slide. So what we're going to talk about, I'll be talking about the first 3 points. Number one, where have we been? I'll talk about the historical progression of what we've done here in Northeast Tennessee. Could be a good model for yourself if you're looking at doing something like this at another location. I'm going to talk about where we are now. So, 7 to 8 years in, what has it grown into? What can you expect for it to look like if you want to go full board? Because I think if you had 4 or 5 instructors who would join you, you could absolutely do that and really kick off a full competition this fall. Not worrying about COVID-19, but all things considered, you could absolutely kick this thing off if you had 4 or 5 good partners to help. We're going to talk about where we're going. Obviously, there's a lot of things in question right now with everything that's going on in the world, but we're going to talk about in a perfect world what it is that we would like to see. Then I'll hand over, and I want my co-presenters, honestly, to have the majority of the time to present before the question and answer session, to really I want them to have the majority of that time to talk about the actual competitions themselves. So what is it that they look like? Emily's going to talk about the written legal section, and then Justin's going to talk about the law enforcement forensics. And again, we'll do that question and answer, and we're also going to share a bunch of documents with you so if you wanted to again, rip it off, take it, run with it. All the documents that you would need are on the homepage for this session. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Just a little bit about myself there. Don't want to talk a whole lot, but I do have a master's in criminal justice, and most of my time has been spent with federal law enforcement. And so when I got into this, one of the big things that kind of struck me was the complexity at which the state expected us to teach these kids, specifically the CJ3 curriculum. It was very difficult for me, even some of the advanced training I had, that something like blood spatter, how am I expected to train these kids on it? And so I started working into it and quickly realized that, really trying to integrate competition in this was quite complicated. And so very quickly started to think that, that I think there's something out there where we can really bring all of our experience to bear with all the instructors in the area that have very good experience as well, both in law and corrections and all those things, and trying to bring that to bear in one big day and having this type of competition and really meeting those Perkins requirements for us. Next slide. So when we got started, 2012 was the first year of the competition. Really, it was just me and my CJ3 classes, and I split them up into 4 groups. Invited some of my friends from the TBI and the FBI to come over, and I basically put out 4 mock crime scenes, gave them checklists, really rubrics, and had those agents grade those kids. And I told the winning team that they were going to get a dozen donuts or something the next day. I don't forget what the reward was, but it just went awesome. And they did a great job. The agents were really happy to honestly kind of be off the street for a day and deal with kids that want to be like them. just the questions that normally, I start getting pelted with questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, can you guys just listen for a second? They love it. They love coming in and dealing with kids that in a positive nature. And so the best part of the day I put there was lunch was good, and it was probably the best part because getting to see my students interact with all of these agents and ask questions and about the hiring process and things they had learned about the interviews and the testing and, what does your average day look like? And if I wanted to do this, which agency would you suggest applying for? It was just incredible. And I realized real quickly that this was just a really good model of things to come. And so in the second year, I invited a couple other schools to attend, and they did. And so we had 3 schools. And really the competition itself was one singular crime scene. So I tried to work as much into that single crime scene as I could. So there would be blood spatter, there would be a fingerprint, there would be some glass shatter. There's all kinds of things there to process. And it was kind of a tough thing. And so the next year when we had massive growth, it almost broke down on us. And so we had 8 schools come in, and we had over 100 individual participants. And so this large crime scene format really kind of broke down on us. And really the big thing was there's really no standardized format to the competition. And so as a training event, one team was graded on one standard and another team was graded on another standard. And so this was a pretty big problem, to be quite honest. And luckily we always hold the judges over after everybody leaves, and we have an after action review. And one of the comments was, hey, do this in a round robin style atmosphere. And so in 2015, we did that. We basically unpacked the CJ3 standards, and we made an individual blood spatter competition. We made an individual glass shatter forensics competition, firearm forensics. And so it worked really, really well. And the kids loved it. They were able really to focus in on what they were interested in. A lot of kids, when we do the blood spatter analysis, they look at, a lot of the math and the science, and they're just not necessarily interested in that. And you'll have 3 or 4 kids that say, that's what we want to do. And so for the 2 weeks prior to the competition, that's all they do is blood spatter analysis. And, I'll call in local experts from the area who will come in and sit down with those kids and run them through fake scenarios and ask them questions and really help train them up. And so the round robin style format that we've developed now is just a really, really good format, and it flows really well. It makes for a quick day too. We'll normally start off about 8:45 and we're done about 12. So that's kind of how we've gotten to where we are in 2020, if you would, Justin. And so where we are now is we generally have, we're still between 8 to 10 schools participating. We usually have well over 120 kids and around 30 law enforcement partners, folks that come in to judge for us. The cool thing that happened last year is we added advanced photography last year to the competition. And one of our law enforcement partners who had judged for us in the past said, hey, number one, I want to train the instructors. So he came in during our summer PD day and he trained us. And then the next thing he did, he actually put on a competition. So that was something that the instructors didn't have to do. He showed up with all his props, with his grading rubrics, with the rules, with all the equipment that he needed. And he put on the competition for us for advanced photography. And so that was a really cool development. I think that may be kind of where we're headed, is letting law enforcement actually put the training on. But basically the competitions have expanded past technically the CJ3 curriculum into everything law and legal services. You've got a lot of kids that will take the CJ3 that want to go to law school. Let's be quite honest. So really the forensics thing, they're just taking it because they just want to be there. And so the competition didn't really get their dander up. And we started looking at it. It's like, well, we've got Emily, who's a lawyer. Let's use her expertise. Let's put this out there. And she's going to talk about that, how we've expanded even into the pre-law curriculums now. So really it covers CJ 1, 2, and 3 and pre-law 1, 2, and 3. There's something from every class that you will find at this competition. Leadership for opportunities for each student, that's 4 students at each school is a big thing for us. At Elizabethton, these kids will have a picture in the yearbook as the CSI team. It's an extracurricular activity. It's a big part of student life, to be quite honest. We generally have anywhere from 25 to 30 kids that want to be on the CSI team, and it is a competitive effort. I can guarantee you that. There's a lot of different ways of preparing for the competition, and this is really where the integration happens. For me personally, luckily enough, we've got enough kids in the program right now to where I'll have usually 2 CJ3 classes in the fall. And so with those kids going out of the program, that's kind of their capstone, to be quite honest. That's where you go when you finished all the criminal justice. You take the CJ3 in the fall, and that class, obviously we will teach the CJ3 curriculum, and I hustle through it. We're usually done with the CJ3 curriculum by the middle of October, and that's when we start getting ready for the CSI competition. So I'll have the students tell me what teams they want to be on. And it's not even actually me. We elect a team president, and that team president says, okay, you're on this team, you're on that team. And they will bust out into their teams and go start preparing. For example, like the legal thing, they'll go start honestly studying and getting ready for that exam. And then we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We always host this in the fall to allow participation in Skills USA. A lot of our schools and teachers still want to do the Skills USA. And so we would never host it in the spring because we don't want to step on skills. That's very important to a lot of the folks that participate. The way we do the round robin format, and Justin's going to talk a lot about that here in a second, is if you agree to bring students to the competition, then you're saying, okay, I will host one individual part of this. So for me personally, last year, I did glass shatter forensics. So it was my job to put together the glass shatter forensics competition. And Justin will show you through everything that goes into putting these individual competitions as part of the bigger round robin event. Competition will run from 8 to 12. Usually, honestly, it gets started pretty late. It'll usually go about 8:20 to 8:30 just because of the buses. That transportation issue is a big part of this. So by running it from 8 to 12, they're able to make their morning run, and they're able to return usually to the school by 1:30 because we end the competition at 1 o'clock with an award ceremony. And so that way you can make sure and get buses. The instructors serve as officers in the East Tennessee Criminal Justice Instructors Association. Again, this is a good little collaborative. One of the cool things that we've started doing there is putting on a PD day in the summers so we can train on these new things that we want to bring in. This year, we're going to do training on drones. That's kind of where we're headed next. I'll talk about that here in a second. And we're also trying to put together a career day in the spring. So just invite the local law enforcement partners, corrections agencies, and those things to bring them in as a recruiting event for our kids. One of the cool things that's happening with this, Carter County Sheriff's Office changed their general orders to say that they will, in fact, hire people that are younger than 21 years of age. Obviously not in the law enforcement capacity, but either in a corrections, evidence control, intelligence analyst. I have a student that's working as an intelligence analyst for Carter County Sheriff's Office, and he's 19 years old. And that's because of this competition. They saw what these kids were capable of and just realized we've got to get these kids into our ranks and try to build some loyalty to them so that when they graduate from college, they come back to us. We have hosted the last 2 years at TCAT in Elizabethton, which is an awesome facility for hosting this. The only problem is it's just not really centric to the Tri-Cities area. I would suggest if you're considering this to try to find an area that's really in the middle of all your schools. But obviously you're going to want an area that has the ability to host a round robin event. You don't want everything going on in one big area because the kids are kids and they will watch the guys in front of them in order to try to gain a competitive advantage. So you want it to be able to have these small rooms where it can kind of be sheltered from everybody and still have that one big area for everybody to gather. So that's kind of where we're at now. Let's talk about where we're headed. The biggest thing that we're doing right now is expanding the legal section into more of a practical exercise. Emily's going to talk about that here in a little bit, so I'm not going to foray a lot into that. But you see there, that's a picture from our aviation program at our high school. They're getting really big into drones. And that's one of the things that we're going to do this fall is we're going to have a drone exhibition. And so we're not going to have a competition this year, but we are going to have an exhibition. And we are going to conduct some PD training with our instructors in the association on drones. And so that's going to kind of be, I'm going to look at a couple of the local sheriff's office that are big into the drones and look and see if they'll host a competition for us and they'll actually come out and train us and the kids. So that's kind of where we're headed next. I do believe we are maxed out regionally. We can't get any bigger. That's just not possible. And everybody knows about it. And we do have instructors that come and go, just depending on their scheduling, their numbers at the time, what their requirements are at their local institution. It's not a hard and fast, like, well, if you don't do it this year, you can't. No, it's not the way we work. If you want to do it this year and not next year, that's fine. And so, but regionally, we are maxed out. And so really the next place where we would like to go is to move statewide. The TBI has expressed a lot of interest in saying that they would like to help us do this. But they're obviously not going to host the competition per se. That's going to come on us. So kind of kind of the thing that we've talked about in the back channels is we would like to have each region of the state represented and have a state competition in Nashville in the summer or something like that. That would really be a cool thing to have regional champions and then state champions. So I think that would be pretty neat. So at this time, that's pretty much gets you up to speed with where we've been and where we're headed. And so we'll go ahead and hand this thing off to Emily, and she'll talk to you about the legal section.
Okay. As Ryan said, my name is Emily Harrison. So just some background about me. Ryan likes to call me a lawyer. Point of fact, I'm not actually a lawyer. But I do have a law degree. I received my law degree from Appalachian School of Law in 2014. Decided I didn't want to practice and got my master's in teaching from ETSU in 2017. So I was able to marry those two passions and became a criminal justice. Justin, do you care to go to the next slide? Thank you. So just a little bit of background about how I got involved in this competition. The first year that I came to the competition was 2017, and I just came by myself to observe. And I walked around, I took notes, I spoke with the kids competing, I spoke with the judges, and that was such a great resource for me because the judges would break it down step by step and tell me, this is what you're going to need to do, and this is what you're going to need to teach your students so they can come and compete next year. So the next year, 2018, I brought my first team. And this past fall, whenever I brought my team, it had probably doubled in size because the kids heard about the competition and they were really excited about it. So it's been a great recruiting tool for me. And it also allows you to kind of have that coaching dynamic with your students. Those of you that are coaches, you know that you kind of have a different dynamic than if it's just like teacher student. So this competition kind of allows you to kind of get down in the trenches with your kids and have that relationship. So that's been a lot of fun and a great way to just have a lot of fun in the classroom. So on to the legal section. It started out the first year that I brought students to compete in 2018. We had a written legal exam. Sorry, my husband just got home from court. We had a written legal exam that honestly made me sweat and feel like I was back in law school. It was so tough. And that was from another teacher who is no longer teaching criminal justice in our area. So after she left, the guys asked if I would take that over. So what we did is we took that exam that she prepared and we looked at our statewide dual enrollment criminal justice standards. And we kind of brought those together. And so we took all of those questions and standards. We looked at more of our criminal justice 2 standards than criminal justice 3 because that focuses more on the legal aspect of it. And we came multiple choice tests. So what it does is you have to answer questions about certain vocabulary. You have to answer questions about landmark Supreme Court cases. There were some scenarios in there about how you would apply a certain piece of the law to the scenario, which we want to get more into because that's what these kids are going to face if they go on to the collegiate or law school level. They're going to have to take the law and apply it to a scenario. And so that's what we're trying to prepare them for because like Ryan mentioned earlier, we have a lot of kids that sign up for these classes that maybe don't want to put on the uniform and become a law enforcement officer, but they want to do something in the law field. So, law school is a good alternative for a lot of them. And we want to prepare them for it. I do not come from a legal family. I'm the only person in my family that's gone to law school. So I wasn't very prepared. Whereas my husband comes from a legal family and he knew so much more about it than I did. So I'd love to be able for us to be that resource for these kids that want to go on and pursue, paralegal or law degree. So what we want to do now going forward is, like I said, get more of those scenarios involved and really try to improve the rigor. We've got some students that take these classes that maybe aren't as what we would call hands-on students as some of the other CTE programs. And so this is kind of a great way to bridge that gap maybe they are the abstract thinkers of your group. So you can let them sign up for this legal exam, and that really is going to engage that part of their brain and how they enjoy learning. So that's a really good way to kind of bridge that gap with those students. We want to add in more variety. So Justin, if you don't care to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We want to add in more variety. So we've talked about adding in a practical side to this. Just on a personal level, the mock trial section of my class is one of my most popular sections. The kids dress up, they get to pick a legal scenario. I think it was year before last when the case with the actor Jesse Smollett was going on, the kids decided to put him on trial in class. So we try to pull in things that are going on that gets them involved, and they really jump into it. So we obviously wouldn't have the time during the competition to do a full mock trial, but what we've came up with is to do an opening argument. So the kids will get a scenario beforehand, which you'll see in the documents that we provide. I always send out a study guide, send out anything that they will need to prepare for this. We're not trying to pull a gotcha on these kids. We want them to work hard and feel rewarded for their hard work. So with the mock opening argument, they'll receive a scenario beforehand, and they'll have to be able to prepare an opening argument for that. It might not be the exact same scenario. They might have to write it on the fly when they get there. We still haven't worked out all of the glitches with it, but it's a way for them to be able to think on their feet and learn to speak to a group of people. Because I'm sure we all have those students that, you know, you say class presentation and they cower in the corner. So this is a great way to help them, because if they do anything in the legal world, they're going to have to learn to speak to people they don't know, possibly testify in court. So this will help them learn to get over that fear now. And then the other thing that we want to add is a law enforcement ethics exam. I think we can all agree that with what's going on in the world right now, we're playing a pretty pivotal role in preparing our future criminal justice workers. So I think it will help them and the entire criminal justice system if we can start preparing them for these ethical situations that they'll face. Because the more prepared they are now, the better equipped they are to handle it when they actually face one of these situations. So we want to give them all the tools that we can to pull from when they're out in the workforce, because that's the whole point of CTE. So those are the big things that we want to add to this. And just on a personal level, I want to mention that I would say at least half of our participants are females, which I think is great. And I think all of the people within our little criminal justice association do a great job about trying to pull in females, because, you know, it's been a male-dominated world. And so I think that my colleagues have done a really great job with that. And I would encourage you that if you take this on and you do this too, that's something that you would do too. I think that's all for me. Yeah, so Justin's gonna go ahead and tell you about the forensic side of it.
Let's see here. Okay, again, I'm Justin Humphries, a criminal justice instructor at Sullivan North. Prior to that, I was with Kingsport Police Department for a little over 10 years, where I served as a patrol officer, was on the bomb squad, and school resource officer. So kind of did a little bit of everything. I'm finishing up my master's degree this summer from Union College. So one of the main things, and like Ryan and Emily both talked about, that we really try to focus on with this competition is drawing in our state standards with the competition. So as you can see there on the screen, I'm not going to read through them all, but we've finally got to where we're incorporating all three criminal justice classes and even the pre-law as well. So predominantly, the CJ3 gets a lot of the attention, but again, we are in the process of kind of revamping and kind of changing things around to pull some more of the other standards in there. All right, so here's a list of our competitions currently from this past year. Like I said, basically go everything from the law exam to blood spatter, glass fracture, and every competition is either a set number of competitors or a team of so many, as you can see. And it really works well to allow these kids to work in teams, especially. There's a lot of different ideas that come in together, and they, have to put their heads together and work. Like Ryan was talking about his students, it's almost like an athletic competition, and they like the pressure, they like the teamwork, and they like, kind of depending on each other to get these things done. So again, we've got some documents that show this later on, so I'm not going to read every word off of it, but it's a wide variety of competitions. The way we hold our round robin is, as a school, to be available for the championship, you have to compete in 7 of the 12 competitions as a school. So you can, if we've had schools that don't actually have criminal justice but have a few forensics classes, so they'll come and compete in 3 or 4 of the forensic competitions just for the experience, which is fine. We've never, told people that they couldn't just do a certain amount, but to be eligible for the championship, it's 7 out of the 12. And individuals, we've limited them to no more than 3 competitions apiece. So each individual student can only compete in 3 individual events. All right, so each competition, breaking down a little bit, the picture there is Happy Valley High School with one of our local TBI agents with them at the award ceremony. So each competition has between 1 to 3 local, state, or federal law enforcement officers as judges, as Ryan spoke about before. So they're right there with the students on the competition, giving them pointers, talking to them before and after the competition, getting that interaction that the students really enjoy. As Ryan spoke about earlier, also we all have the responsibility of running at least one competition, and when you take on that responsibility, it's your responsibility as well to provide the judges for each competition. So I reach out to my Sullivan County Sheriff's Department, Kingsport City Police Department, and bring judges in for that. We have separate grading rubrics, which are in the documents that we've uploaded, and I'll show a few here at the end as well. These are given out to all the instructors probably at least a month before the competition. And this is just like Emily said, we're not trying to pull a gotcha on you. We want everybody to have access to this, everybody to know what the judges are going to be looking for, broken down, point by point. So this is a quick search, our outside crime scene. And you can see the students, on this competition, it's, you have shell casings, maybe some simulated drugs, DNA evidence, certain things like that they're trying to search. Again, this day was pouring down the rain, but the show must go on, like Ryan said. So it was a chilly day, a lot of rain, but we continue to power through, and the students really get that real life experience when you do that. So this is our rubric for the quick scene search, and you can see it's broken down point by point all the way through the things that we're going to be looking for throughout, or the judges will be looking for throughout the competition. So one thing that I like that we always try to throw into each grading rubric is professionalism. That's a big deal when you get into the criminal justice world, and that a lot of times that will separate the couple of 1 or 2 points between first and second place in the competitions. It's been many a times that's done that, and the judges really focus in on that. They really pay attention to the interaction between the students together, the students to the instructor, and things like that. Again, we've got all these documents loaded up so you can check those out. This is a schedule, and we've got this loaded as well. So you got to see it's a pretty tight schedule. It's a 30-minute competition. We have 2 identical scenes, so it gives, and I think we do a 10-minute between to give the judges time for the scoring, give after action with the students, have that interaction with them. So like Ryan said, we're pretty much full on what we can take on. We've only got, I think, 3 time slots available throughout the whole day. So it's pretty good. It runs one after another, and we've done a really good job over the last couple of years. Another one of the competitions is a traffic stop competition set up just like a regular traffic stop. The students get a scenario, and they've got to, make their approach up to the vehicle, communicate with the driver, simulate communication with the dispatcher, communicate with their partner if need be. And then again, the professionalism aspect of it a lot of times is the game changer on this. So There's kind of our rubric for that. All right, and then just another schedule. In this specific competition, each school is allowed 3 competitors in this, so you can have up to 3 time slots, which most schools at least take 2 slots if they can. All right, so one of my favorite parts about this, again, is the judges' interaction. And this is 2 of my students after they completed their traffic stop scenario, speaking with one of our local officers just about the things that they did well, the things that they can improve on, you know, and just letting them know those things allows them to build that relationship. And then, like Ryan talked about earlier, there's a lot of business cards that change hands in these competitions. These officers will see somebody that they really like, say, hey man, we need to get that person involved with our agency as soon as we can. So, you know, they'll pass off an email or a business card, say, hey, give me a shout, and we'll talk. You know, potentially give them a position later on, whether it may be in corrections or whatever, before they're eligible to be a law enforcement officer. So this is really good part about it. The kids love it. Again, there's judges, 30 to 40 officers walking around throughout the day or judging competitions. So there's a lot of opportunity for interaction, which again is great recruiting for our local agencies, as well as experience for our students as far as getting to speak with an actual law enforcement officer. A few things that I failed to mention that I want to go back on a little bit, like Ryan was talking about, we have a large holding area, and this particular year we had hosted the competition at a church. So right in the sanctuary was our holding area. So we want to keep all the kids in the one general specific area, so they're not walking around looking at other competitions, trying to get a heads up, things like that. So it really works out pretty good. I print off a schedule for each of my students. Hey, you're supposed to be at the blood spatter competition at 9:30. So about 5 minutes before that, you know, 10 minutes before that, walk over that way. If you're not going to a competition, you need to be in this area. So it works out. It works out well. And the students really, you know, they like the competition, so they want to get the advantage. But I've had a few say, hey man, there's somebody over here watching us compete. And they take it pretty serious. So that's another thing to think about. Like Ryan said before, make sure your venue is big enough to have that room. And I think this year we probably had 150 to 160 students. So it does need to be a pretty big area. I think that's all I've got for now. Ryan, do you want to do questions now, or do you want me to show documents?
Let's give it about 30 seconds if anybody wants to pop up some questions.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes. If not, we'll jump into those documents.
I will say we had a question come in on the chat feature on Zoom that asked if we had the ethics written and ready to go. We don't yet. That, like I said, that's something we're going to add in this year, and I hoped and assumed we might work on at our PD in the next couple of weeks. But if that's something that you're interested in, if you'll share your email address either in the Zoom chat or the chat through the conference platform, I'm happy to jot your email down and I can send it to you whenever we get it. I think Ryan and Justin would agree. We don't want to be secretive with our documents and stuff like that. Like, we've worked hard. It's been a collaborative effort, and I think, we want to see this go as far as it can. So we're happy to share what we've got. So if you need that information, if you'll put your email somewhere where I can write it down, we'll send it to you.
Question from Cora there. We don't charge anything per school. It's no charge to the students. What we have started doing is having them pack or bring their own lunch. So we don't charge the students anything. I think,
go ahead.
What do we do? Like $40 maybe per school? Was that what we did? I can't remember.
Each school would chip in to pay a cleaning fee. For last year to TCAT, just to pay the cleaning crew. As far as like lunch, we were doing a lunch together, so we were ordering pizza from Little Caesars or somewhere, and it just got to be so much with so many people that we were like, hey, each school's responsible. So like our bus, we're the closest to the competition site, so they'll stop off at Chick-fil-A, and literally you can see there in that picture, the only expense the kids come across is a t-shirt, and they love these t-shirts. Those t-shirts are they're a big badge of courage as they walk through school that they're on the CSI team. And it's a really good program. The only cost I've ever incurred is just for the materials for my individual competition. So we have a local glass business that I'll go to and I'll buy some glass. Of course, I run that goes through school, and that comes out of my program funds. But obviously there's nothing really expensive. I think a couple of years I just paid for it out of pocket just because it was easier to do than getting a purchase order and all that stuff. So there is no cost to the kids. It's absolutely free.
Okay, we had a question from Lisa Norris about how to brief a case. Yes, Lisa, I'm happy to send you information about that. I'm going to write your email down. Also, you gave me flashbacks to law school, so thank you for that. If anybody, she is asking because it's for the Skills USA competition. So if anybody else is having kind of along that same issue, if you'll put it in the chat, I'll add you to the email with Lisa.
We also got another question here about, can we share anything like the forms and contact information? My contact information is going to go up here on the last slide. But if you go back to the CTE website, whatever this is, I forget the name of the CTE conference website. I've uploaded all the documents with all the schedules, all the rubrics, all the guidelines, the timeline for the day, the briefing, the safety briefing, all of that stuff is there. And if you simply just want to rip that off and start your own, please go for it, because we just think this is great for the kids. But my email address is on there. So if you want to rip the documents off and you've got questions, or you'd like to do a Zoom between, somebody that's here on this panel and your group, that'd be great. Just let us know. Just send me an email and I'll get that lined up.
Yeah, and I threw my email into the chat there. It's just justin.humphries@sullivank12.net. So same for me if anybody has any questions. So while we're talking here, I can actually pull those documents up here for the last couple of minutes, Ryan, if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Oh, can I ask a
Go
question
ahead.
really quick? We had this come through on the conference chat. So Derek Frazier says, I'm a new criminal justice teacher. I don't have a lot of experience with forensics or crime scenes. Is there an instructor course that I could attend that would help me? So can I take this one? Do y'all mind if I answer this one?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Derek, if you heard my little bio earlier, I too do not have a lot of forensic background. Well, I'm not even gonna say a lot. I had no forensic background. So what helped me the most was linking up with people like Ryan and Justin, who have taught for a while, who have the law enforcement background. I had the legal background, just not the law enforcement background. So I started talking with them, and what they couldn't tell me from their own personal experience, they told me, find the law enforcement people in your area and talk to them. And a lot of the times they are more than willing to help you. You're going to run across some people that, grumble and say they don't have time for that. But most of the time, any officer that I've approached or asked for help, they've been more than willing to tell me or tell the kids, and I learn from them telling the kids or something like that. So that would be my advice to you. And go slow. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a competitor by nature. So I thought I'm going to learn all of this like in one fell swoop, like Pac-Man. I'm just going to go through and like eat it all up. And it was really overwhelming. So focus on like baby steps as you go. Like you don't have to learn it all in a year. You don't have to learn it all in 2 years. So I would do that. And then while you're learning all that, you're also building this network with your officers that are around you. And so then later on, if you do want to start this competition, you've already got those connections that you can call them and have them come in and help you.
Yeah, and I'll even piggyback off that a little bit. Is I was law enforcement for over 10 years, and I never did blood spatter or glass fracture analysis or firearms forensics or any of that. So I had to rely on my guys at the police department or sheriff's department to come in and almost teach for me. And me learning, I think Ryan, the same way. I mean, we've kind of learned from our local guys, our officers, and let them teach us how to teach our students. So I have a document up there. It's just kind of our competition guide, gives a timeline, things like that, safety briefing.
Justin, I think you'll have to restart your share because we're still seeing the PowerPoint.
All right, hang on a minute.
And also, we've only got just a few minutes left.
Okay. I don't know. Can we see? Are we good now with the law study guide?
Yep.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. Okay, good. So that's the law study guide. Like I said, that Emily just put out some of the important things that the students need to look at, different amendments, landmark cases, things like that, some little vocabulary. Then we actually have the test loaded up as well. This one is our overall scoring rubric, each school's name with each competition. That's in there as well. Here's the list of competitions with the rules, the amount of competitors, the judges needed for us, what standards that correlate with each competition, the time of the competition, all that good stuff is all on there. And again, this is in the documents that Ryan brought up, some schedules, written tests. So, and I'm going to stop screen sharing. That's all of them. So I think we got just a minute or so if anybody has any questions here as we're finishing up.
All right. Looks like we've maxed it out. So really appreciate y'all coming in and hearing what we've got to say. We were kind of worried we'd do this to an empty room, but it's saying that there's 72 attendees. So that's really neat. And again, we're looking for partners is what we really had a wish for, is that we wanted folks to pick up the banner across the state. And, maybe there's 10 regional competitions across the state. And then in the summer we go to TVI headquarters or something like that and bring those 10 champions in and compete. Wow. What a neat thing that would be. And I think the important thing here is that we're really grooming this next generation of law enforcement, because there's as many kids as come in and say, I want to do that. There's a lot of kids that say, I don't want to do that. And that's okay. And I think that's part of it, but we're just really working hard at grooming them, letting them see the personalities, understanding the professionalism, and moving on from there. So again, thank y'all for coming. And I'll give the floor over now.
Yeah. Sorry guys. I forgot to get to the last slide. There's your keyword. I know everybody wants the keyword. So it's fries is the keyword for this session. So don't forget that. And then there's, again, Ryan's email.
And I was just going to say, yeah, the keyword, if you want to fill out the survey to get credit, continuing education credit. Thank you all. Y'all did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Did you see that question down there, Ryan?